Hello everyone, my name is Sabrina Melodieuse. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're doing a wonderful tutorial. Yes, and this is the tutorial. This is what I'm wearing. I will show you a little bit closer. First of all, I will show it to you how it looks on me. There we are. Isn't that an amazing shawl? Yes, it truly is. So now let's talk about this shawl, shall we? It's a very easy and very quick tutorial, and I hope you will enjoy it. But first of all, let's discuss what is this shawl about. This is called the Hag Shawl, and I did write quite a few notes because I don't want to forget anything. Here is the list. The Hag Shawl by the Yarn Hag Ryan. Yes, it is. This is her design. So I wrote a few things because I really don't want to forget anything. This is such an amazing shawl. Designed by Ryan. And honestly, this is a stroke of genius. This is a correct sentence, right? You can say stroke of genius, right? I don't know. I think it is. It sounds good. Stroke of genius. Absolute genius. Ryan, you are amazing. Yes, you are. You truly are. So she came up with a new stitch, and we discussed that even on the phone. And she was a little bit worried in case this stitch existed somewhere. And honestly, I never heard of that stitch. So, you know, I think a few of us told her, claim it, because you invented that stitch, Ryan, you really did. And that stitch is just, wow, it is amazing. So let's discuss this shawl first of all. So it's called the Hag Shawl, and introducing the very new Hag Stitch by Ryan. And there it is. It's like an asymmetrical shawl. So here it is. It's never easy to show on camera. But this particular stitch, well, let's discuss size-wise. The one I made, so from this side here to the tip of the shawl, there, measures 47 inches or 120 centimeters. And the top of the shawl, which is that bit here, you know, the largest part, shall we say, you know, the opposite side of the tip, is 30 inches or 77 centimeters. Like so. So it's a gigantic triangle, if you like. So you can wear that in any way that you see fit. I put it like that here, and then put it around myself. I wrap it around myself, and there we go, just like that. Okay, and what else can we mention? So this, when she started to make this particular shawl, this is where I need to pause because I thought I was organized, but I've forgotten something, so I will be right back. Okay, so I am back and I got my little thing I want to show you. So Ryan said that when she first came up with this concept, she was saying that she took up knitting, which is lovely. Welcome to the world of knitting, Ryan. I hope you enjoy it. She was saying that she was working on, I think it was a shawl, using the garter stitch, and she was saying how she enjoyed the texture of the garter stitch. So I went upstairs and got a piece because I'm actually working on a wonderful blanket, and funnily enough, I'm using just the garter stitch. So it's squares like that, but using garter stitch. As you can see, I don't know if you can see that, just like so here. This is the garter stitch. There. Okay, so she was talking about how the stitch felt in her hand when she squished it, the texture of it, and she was kind of getting sick and tired of doing the garter stitch, not because it's a boring stitch, but because it actually takes forever to do something, and know exactly what she's talking about. This blanket, it is taking forever, but it is enjoyable. And it's true that when you squish it, there is a certain, wow factor that is just unbelievable. It's just so squishy and just so wonderful. It really ticks all your senses boxes, It is just an amazing thing. So she thought, well, I want something like that, but in crochet, because that way it'll be much faster to do. So she did a couple of tests, and eventually she came up with this Hag Stitch, which is just absolutely amazing. Stroke of genius, seriously. So let's see if we can mention everything that I want you to know about this. This beautiful stitch is a beautiful, most amazing texture in your hand. It is so squishy, 3D, reversible, and there's like a slant into it. It becomes a little bit diagonal. Is that how you say? Diagonal? Anyway, so you know what I'm saying, yeah? Diagonal. And my goodness, this stitch, when you work with it, it is addictive. You think, because this is a one row repeat and there are 2 stitches involved. There is the half double crochet in the back loop. And the other one is, let me see, it is front 3rd loop half double crochet. And I know a lot of people have problems with just the same repeats over and over again, that it becomes so boring beyond belief, right? Let me tell you, this is never boring. This is an addictive stitch that when you start this, you will not want to put your hook down. Absolutely not. And after doing this shawl, I'm going to do another 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many, but I'm going to enjoy to play with it a lot. It is just amazing, Ryan. Like I keep saying, you are a genius. Okay, so all the texture of it, the 3D reversibility, and just the squishiness of it, and just the addictiveness of this stitch is just amazing. So what else? During this tutorial, I will share a couple of tips, and also, because this is quite a hard thing to show, I will try and show you a little bit close up the stitch itself. Otherwise, I will go to my table and show you a little bit closer up, okay? So look at this stitch. I don't know if you can see, but there's like a diagonal thing going on. So here, you see there, it goes on a slant. So let me see if I can show you. This is going that way. No, see, it's hard to show on camera. It's going that way. Is it? I'm going opposite side of what I'm supposed to show you. That way. Yes, okay. See, that way. I'm following the stitches. And when you reverse the shawl, you see how 3D it is. So when you reverse the shawl, the diagonal are going the opposite side. So that way. Do you see that? And Ryan recommended like a kind of yarn that works in stripes, because she says that the diagonal bit shows better with a stripy yarn. So that's what I've used. And honestly, this is such an enjoyable stitch. I don't know if you can just see how wonderful it is. But it truly is. So in a moment, I will take you to my table and show you a little bit closer. So you can see the stitches, and I will do my best to show that, because it's important to see, you know, just how amazing this stitch is. And so, okay, during this tutorial, I will be showing two options because when I was working on this, I called Ryan, and she told me that the very last stitch was a problem for some testers. So I thought, okay, I'm going to show the first method of where she was telling you how to do this shawl. So I'm going to show you the original version. And I took what she said into consideration. And because it's a quick tutorial, I decided to show option 2. So I will put into the description box below where option 1 begins and where option 2 begins. So feel free to do either option 1 or 2, or both if you want to do both options. It's entirely up to you. So I hope you will join me and Ryan to do this amazing, amazing, most amazing shawl and stitch, the Hag Stitch. I wonder what else we can come up with that amazing stitch, right? Because, you know, this has a lot of potential to do so much more. And already I'm working on something in my head, and before I do anything with it, I will of course phone Ryan or email her and talk about it with her and see what she says. But in the meantime, I will leave you now to enjoy this most wonderful tutorial, which I hope this tutorial will give it justice, Ryan. Really hope so. I wouldn't want it anything less than perfect for you. Okay, so enjoy it, everyone. Happy crochet and making this wonderful shawl.
And let's try to take a closer look, shall we? Okay, so I will try and show you. So this is very much 3D and reversible. And what I was trying to describe earlier with the diagonal thing is that, I don't know if you can see, but the stitches seem to be going on a slant, just like so here. Do you see there's like a slant going that way up, and when you turn the shawl around, the slanting bit will be going on the other way, the opposite side, as you can see there. It's kind of traveling a little bit on a slant. So let's turn it back to the other side so you can try and see that it's going the opposite side. It is so lovely. I really love that stitch, and look how 3D it is. And it is so squishy. I cannot describe this enough. You really need to feel that kind of texture, because it is really amazing and extremely squishy. So there we are. I hope that you would have been able to see this a little bit closer, because honestly it is not very easy to show in front of the camera. But I hope I have succeeded in really interesting you in this most amazing Hag shawl with a beautiful, most amazing Hag stitch. So I will insert a couple of pictures here, and then we'll be ready to discuss materials and start on the shawl. It is now time to gather our wonderful materials to achieve this amazing shawl. Yes, it truly is amazing. So if you want to do the same size shawl that I am doing, you will need 200 grams of DK. And I went into a UK store called B&M and I bought some yarn, baby two-tone. But I realized that this is only in the UK and each ball contains 100 grams. So I used 200 grams of DK, and honestly I only had a very few inches left of the yarn, and I certainly did not have enough to make another row. So I used all of the yarn. If you want to make a smaller shawl, you will use less than 200 grams. But obviously if you want a much bigger shawl, you will need a whole lot more yarn. Now, whilst I have used DK, you also have the option to use any size yarn that you want. But I would recommend highly that you use a bigger size hook than what the yarn recommends. So for my shawl I use DK, and the crochet hook size that I used is 5 millimeter. Of course it won't focus now. Typical, right? Let's see if we can put this here into the background. Will it work? Oh, here we are, 5 millimeter. Okay, so you got your yarn, your crochet hook, and I also recommend highly that you use some stitch markers, because sometimes with single crochets and half double crochets, at the beginning of the row you might miss a stitch, or you might create an extra stitch because you might go into the chain rather than the stitch. So for that reason I always use stitch markers. So you've got your yarn, hook and stitch markers, which are completely optional. So we are ready to start. And because this shawl is so busy with that yarn, for the purpose of this tutorial I will be using this yarn, Starcraft Special DK, and the color is Citron. That's what it is. I don't know if you can see. Focus. It's tiring that this camera does not focus, right? Citron. Okay, I think I will do something right now. Let's turn off the autofocus, see if it works. Citron! Yes, it does. Okay, and what that means is lemon. So this is a lemon color, and I'm going to use that. A nice bright and plain yarn, so that you can see exactly where I'm going to do the stitches. Okay, so we are now ready to begin. Extra note, as I may have mentioned earlier, to do this shawl we have two different options on how to achieve this amazing shawl. So there is option 1, which I will start with, and if you want to do it just slightly differently, there is option 2. It will make complete sense if you watch option 1 and option 2. And these tutorials should be very quick. So either that, or I will stamp the time in the description box below so you can see where option 1 begins and where option 2 begins. Okay, so now that we have all that said, let's begin. Okay, now we have everything that we need. We are ready to start with the Hag Shawl option 1. Okay, and it is really very simple. We have a couple of rows that are just to set it up, and once you've set it up, it is basically a 1-row repeat. So it's going to be a very quick tutorial. Okay, so to begin with, we get our yarn and we're going to do a slip knot. So you can do that in whichever way that you want, but this is how I do mine. So if you just watch what I'm doing, and then you'll be able to get it. So there we are. I am doing it. Slip knot is now complete. Let's begin. So we are going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I might zoom in, because in this particular shawl you really need to focus on what we are doing. So from now on, whenever we do chains, these chains will never ever count as a stitch. They are just there to go up to the next level, but you will never use this as a stitch. Okay, so do try and remember that. So in the third chain from the hook, we're going to do 3 half double crochet. Remember, the chains never count as a stitch. It's very important to remember that, and that is why I also use stitch markers for this particular shawl. So in this chain here, we're going to do 3 half double crochet. So let's pretend that you know how to do half double crochet, as I'm pretty sure you do. So 1, immediately I will put the stitch marker in here. And admittedly, for the first row, you don't really need to do that, but it comes naturally to me. So we've done 1, here comes the second, and now the third. Okay, this is how our works look. So we are going to go up to the second row. We're going to chain 2. Remember, this will never count as a stitch. Turn your work, and into this very first stitch here, we're going to do 2 half double crochet. This will create an increase. Okay, so 1, and I will put my stitch marker right now. And another one into that very same stitch. And now this is where we really need to pay attention, because in this particular pattern we're going to use back loop half double crochet. So that means we work in the back loops, but then we are going to do a half double crochet in the front third loop. Yes, that is right, and that is the stitch that was created by the Hag, yes, which means that Ryan created this most amazing stitch. Okay, so let's begin. In this next stitch, we're going to do a back loop, half double crochet. So if my camera will cooperate this time, that will be very nice. And maybe if we zoom. Okay, hopefully that's not too close, but you do need to see what we're doing. So I have the most frustrating camera on the planet. So here is the next stitch, and normally we would go through both loops just like so, but in this particular occasion, so you can see here, this is the front loop and here is the back loop. We're going to go into that back loop. So let's do a half double crochet in that back loop right there, I hope you can see this because it's a very important thing to do. And before I continue on, I think one of the tips that I will give you right now is an important one to remember. When you do your half double crochet, try to not do them too tightly, because the next stitch we're going to do is extremely important that you can visualize where the front third loop is. And if you do that too tightly, you will not be able to do it. So try and do your stitches a little bit on the looser side. Okay, you will see exactly what I mean now. This is the next stitch. As you can see, this is where we will normally put the hook in. But we don't want to do that. Right underneath this, you can see another loop. Can you see? I don't know if you can see. We really need to see this. And okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause and I'll be back in a second. Okay, this should be much easier to follow. Okay, so now in this particular stitch, we would normally go through both loops, just like so. Okay, so you can see both loops here, and visually right here, we would put our stitch right through that hole. But we're not going to do that this time. We are going to go into the loop that's directly below that. I really hope you can see that. And this loop is right here. Okay, let's see if I can show you with a crochet hook. Here. This loop, this one here. And I think that this is why it's so important to not do your stitches too tightly, otherwise you might miss that loop. So here it is right underneath the stitch, and you're going to do a half double crochet. In the next row I have a wonderful tip about that particular stitch. So I will now remove my stitch marker and we can begin the next row. And really the next row is where the one row repeat begins. And remember that the written instructions are also in the description box below. So chain 2 and turn your work around. And in that very first stitch, we're going to do our increase, just like every row. The first stitch will always have increases, always. So here's the first half double crochet. Immediately I place my stitch marker and another half double crochet in that same stitch. Next stitch will be a back loop, half double crochet. So sometimes it really helps when you swivel your work just like that, and you can see both loops perfectly. So, and in that back loop you will do your half double crochet. Next stitch right here is where we do our front loop it is the front third loop half double crochet. I do beg your pardon. So as you can see, this is our stitch, and right underneath here there is that third loop. There it is right here. So here is another tip for you. If you're having trouble doing this stitch going from this way, don't worry. There is another way where you can catch that loop without any problems whatsoever. So instead of going from this way, you will use the hook bit to catch the loop. So I will show you now. Like this. Just catch the loop. You see? Let's do that again. So here's the stitch, and let's catch the front loop with the hook. There! And do your half double crochet. And the last stitch we're going to do a back loop, half double crochet. So just swivel your work around so you can see both loops, and that is why it's so important to use a stitch marker, because it helps you to see, oops, of course it just leaves. It helps you to see where both loops are. Okay, so then you just put your hook in here and do your half double crochet. Now we'll remove the stitch marker. There we are. Let's do one more row together. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. So chain 2, turn your work, and in that first stitch, remember we do increase. So 2 half double crochet. 1 and we're going to do a second half double crochet into that same stitch. Okay, so now we're going to do a back loop half double crochet into the next stitch. So remember, just swivel it if you want to see where both loops are, like that, see? And back loop half double crochet. Next stitch is a front loop, is a front third loop half double crochet. So here's our stitch and where we would normally go, and the front loop is right here. So let's do a half double crochet in that third loop. Next stitch is a back loop half double crochet, and here it is, the back loop. So let's do a back loop half double crochet, and that into that very last stitch it is a front third loop half double crochet, and I think you may be able to visualize it perfectly now. Here it is right there. So just do a half double crochet into that one. And this is basically our one row repeat. So I will do one more row with you. Chain 2, turn your work around, and into that first stitch what are we doing? Yes, that's right, we're doing an increase. So 2 half double crochet. First half double crochet, and then we place our stitch marker. And then a second half double crochet into that same stitch. Next stitch will be a back loop half double crochet. So here it is there. We'll do the stitch into here, the half double crochet into the back loop. There we are. And into the next stitch we're doing a front third loop half double crochet. And where is it? So here's our stitch, here's where we normally go into that hole, but we're going through that loop here. Okay, so either you go through that way or with the hook that way. It is entirely up to you. And remember to try and do your stitches a little bit on the looser side. Next stitch is a back loop half double crochet, and here is the back loop. Next stitch is a front loop. No, it is a front third loop half double crochet. I do beg your pardon, I always make a mistake with that stitch. So here is where we normally go, but we will go through that front loop here. And it's always so important to get this right. Otherwise, it would not be the wonderful Hag stitch after all, right? So, and into the last stitch, it's going to be a back loop half double crochet. If you need to rewind, just rewind and rewatch what I'm doing. But I think that by now you should be getting the idea. So next row you would chain 2, turn your work around, and into that stitch you would do 2 half double crochets. Remember, this is the increase. Into that stitch here you're going to do a back loop half double crochet. Into the next stitch you're going to do a front third loop half double crochet, which the loop is right here. And into the next stitch you're going to do a back loop half double crochet into here. Next stitch is a front third loop half double crochet, which is right here. And into the very last stitch, here you can see both loops, so you will just go through the back loop. So there we are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next row that I've described, you should have 8 stitches, and then the next one 9, and etc., etc. And it is a really enjoyable shawl. Let me bring my shawl back again so that you can see the stitch. It is truly a lot of fun. And there we are. It is so addictive. I am going to do so many of those shawls. It is crazy. So there we are. This is a wonderful Hag stitch, the wonderful Hag shawl. And I will leave you here, and then I will be back to get started with option 2. And we are now ready to begin with option 2, which might be a little bit easier for you guys. So you will see what I'm talking about as we're going through this option 2. So we're going to start with our slip knot. And we're going to do 2 foundation rows before we begin our repeat row. So to start that, we're going to chain 3. And remember, chains never count as anything, not as a stitch or anything, okay? Which is why it's always important to use a stitch marker with this particular shawl as well. So in the third chain from the hook, we're going to do 3 half double crochet. So 1, and immediately I will place my first stitch marker. And I like to use nice, bright and cheerful stitch markers for tutorials so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Stitch marker, but of course you don't have to do that. Okay, chain 2, which remember is not a stitch. Turn your work, and into that very first stitch you're going to do 2 half double crochet, which will be the increase on every single row. So 1, place your stitch marker, and we're going to do another half double crochet in that very same stitch. Next stitch will be a back loop half double crochet. So I'm pretty sure you all know how to do that, but just in case, as you can see, here is our stitch, and we would normally go through both loops, just like so. So you can see both loops here. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to go through, see, this is the front loop, and here's the back loop. We're going to go through only the back loop. Half double crochet in that back loop. And into that very last stitch, unlike option 1, where in this one we went through the front of this one here, but in this particular stitch we're just going to go through both loops and do a regular half double crochet. So right here I'm going to remove my stitch marker and do a half double crochet. Chain 2, turn your work around, and this is where our repeat begins. So in that first stitch we are going to do 2 half double crochet. Every row you will always start with an increase, every single row. So 2 half double crochet in that first stitch, place a stitch marker, And here's where our repeat begins. Into next stitch we are going to do a back loop half double crochet. So again, if you look at the stitch and look at the back loop, it is right here. Half double crochet into that one. Next stitch is going to be a front third loop half double crochet. So normally to do any stitch we go through them 2 loops, just like I keep saying, but in that particular one we are not. If you look at this stitch here, this is where you would normally go in. Directly underneath here, there is a front loop. Right here. I hope you can see that. That loop here. This is where you're going to do your half double crochet. There. And into that very last stitch here, you're going to do a regular half double crochet. And let's do the next row together. Chain 2, turn your work, and in that very first stitch you're going to do 2 half double crochet. 1 and place the stitch marker. And 2. Next stitch we're going to do a back loop half double crochet right there, and next stitch is going to be a front third loop half double crochet, and here's where the next stitch is, and the third loop is right here. I hope you can see this. Well, you're going to do that there, okay? And half double crochet, and into the last stitch we're going to do a regular half double crochet through both loops. And I'm going to do another row with you, and I just lost my stitch marker, so I'll just get another one. So chain 2 and turn your work, and in that very first stitch we're going to do 2 half double crochet. Now here's one, and immediately I will place my stitch marker and another half double crochet, and into the next stitch right here we're going to do a back loop half double crochet, so right there. Next stitch, which is right here, we're going to do a front third loop half double crochet, so it is, if you can spot it, it is right here. There. You're going to do a half double crochet into that third front loop. Next stitch is going to be a back loop half double crochet. Sometimes it helps if you just swivel your work around just like so, and you can see where the back loop is. Right here. And now we are at the very last stitch, so you're just going to go through both loops and do a regular half double crochet. And this is how it's done. So there we are. This is how this pattern is achieved. Next row you will do a chain 2, turn your work around, and in that very first stitch you're going to do your 2 half double crochet, and into that stitch you're going to do a back loop half double crochet right here into the back loop, and then into the next stitch you're going to do a front third loop half double crochet, which is right here. And then next stitch is a back loop half double crochet, so right here. The next stitch is a front third loop half double crochet, which is right here. And then in the last stitch through both loops you're going to do a half double crochet, just like so. Okay, so there we are. And oh, I have another tip for you. So I will start the next row with you, and then you will see chain 2, and in that very first stitch you're going to do your 2 half double crochet, and into next stitch we're going to do a back loop half double crochet. Okay, now this is where the tip comes. To do the front third loop half double crochet, you might sometimes struggle to get in here, just like so. So if you are, don't worry. All you have to do is to start that one, instead of going like this, use your hook to catch the loop. Use it just like so. I'll show you. Like this. Use your hook and you'll get it. Do you see? Like this. And then next stitch is going to be a back loop half double crochet, and so on and so forth. This is so much fun, and I hope that you will enjoy making this beautiful shawl. Okay, so I am going to carry on, and I'm going to show you my shawl and how it looks.
Okay, now that you have finished your shawl, this is how it looks when you're wearing it. Isn't it amazing? I just really love it. It's so lovely and just so squishy, and I love the texture. So I hope you will have enjoyed your wonderful tutorial and your wonderful Hag shawl. And there we are. Special thank you to amazing Yarn Hag Ryan. Also for giving me permission to make this amazing tutorial for you guys. And isn't it just an amazing thing that she has come up with? The amazing Hag Stitch. Thank you so much, Ryan. This has been so much fun. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So, thank you everyone for watching. And until the next time, I'm just crouching right here. Happy knitting and crochet, everyone!